Ladies and gentlemen, we often think that great ideas come from a single moment of genius, a flash of insight that strikes like lightning. But in reality, the best ideas don't come from one person sitting alone. They come from teams that know how to think together, challenge each other, and push beyond the obvious. Brainstorming is not just about throwing ideas on a whiteboard. It's about creating an environment where people feel safe to speak, to contribute, and to build something greater than themselves. But let's be honest, most brainstorming sessions don't work. We sit in a room, someone asks for ideas, a few people dominate the conversation, and the session ends without anything truly groundbreaking. Why? Because real brainstorming isn't about collecting random thoughts. It's about fostering trust, collaboration, and a sense of shared purpose. The first step in any brainstorming session is to remove fear. Think about it. If people don't feel safe, they won't share their wild, crazy, or even seemingly ridiculous ideas. And the thing about big ideas is that they usually start off sounding impossible. If someone had said 20 years ago that we'd be riding in strangers' cars instead of taxis, or sleeping in other people's homes instead of hotels, most people would have laughed. But today we have Uber and Airbnb. The best ideas often start as something that feels too big, too risky, or too unrealistic. That's why creating an environment where people feel comfortable sharing anything without judgment is essential. One of the best ways to do this is by setting the tone from the beginning. Before the first idea is even spoken, make it clear that there are no bad ideas in this space. Encourage absurdity. Invite people to think beyond what they believe is possible. The purpose of brainstorming isn't to find a perfect idea immediately, it's to generate enough ideas that you eventually stumble upon something truly great. The next critical step is to listen. Really listen. Too often we're so eager to speak that we don't take the time to fully hear what others are saying. In brainstorming, every idea should be heard and explored, even if it doesn't seem promising at first. Because here's the thing, ideas are like sparks. One thought leads to another and another until something catches fire. If we shut down ideas too early, we may be extinguishing something before it even has a chance to ignite. It's also important to embrace diversity, not just in background, but in thinking styles. A room full of like-minded people will come up with predictable ideas. But when you have a mix of perspectives, creatives, analysts, dreamers, and realists, you get something special. The dreamers push boundaries, the realists refine the details, and together they create something that is both bold and achievable. Another key to effective brainstorming is to avoid the temptation of immediate judgment. It's easy to say, that won't work, or we've tried that before. But every time we dismiss an idea too quickly, we risk missing something valuable. Instead of shutting things down, ask questions. How could that work? What would need to change to make it possible? Questions keep the energy flowing while criticism kills momentum. One powerful technique is to build on each other's ideas. Instead of just responding with, I don't like that, or that won't work, try saying yes and. Or, what if we took that idea and added this twist? Collaboration isn't just about sharing thoughts. It's about enhancing and evolving them together. Of course, not all brainstorming sessions lead to breakthroughs, and that's okay. Sometimes the best ideas come after the meeting, when someone reflects on what was said and sees a new connection. That's why it's crucial to document everything, every idea, every question, every possible solution. Even the ones that don't seem useful today may spark something incredible tomorrow. At its core, brainstorming is not about finding the right answer. It's about creating the right conditions for innovation to happen. When people feel safe, when they feel heard, and when they feel like they are part of something bigger than themselves, that's when the magic happens. People must feel comfortable sharing bold, unconventional, or even absurd ideas without fear of judgment. Innovation thrives in psychological safety. True brainstorming isn't about speaking the loudest, it's about truly hearing others, allowing ideas to build upon one another to create something greater. A mix of different perspectives, dreamers, analysts, and realists, leads to more creative, well-rounded solutions rather than predictable or limited ideas. Instead of shutting down ideas with, that won't work, shift to curiosity. How could this work? This keeps momentum going and encourages continuous innovation. The best ideas come not from individuals, but from teams refining and improving each other's thoughts. Brainstorming is about collective creativity, not competition. When people walk into a room for a brainstorming session, they bring more than just their ideas. They bring their experiences, their doubts, their fears, and their hopes. Some people will immediately start talking, eager to share whatever comes to mind. Others will hesitate, carefully considering whether their thoughts are worth voicing. And then there are those who will remain silent, not because they have nothing to contribute, but because they don't feel safe enough to share. The foundation of any successful brainstorming session isn't a whiteboard or a structured agenda, it's psychological safety. If people don't feel safe, they won't contribute freely. They will filter their thoughts, second guess their instincts, and hold back the very ideas that could lead to breakthroughs. The best leaders and teams understand this. They know that creating a space where people feel safe is not just a nice to have, it's the key to unlocking true innovation. Fear is the biggest enemy of creativity. The moment someone feels they might be judged, ridiculed, or dismissed, they shut down. It's not a conscious decision, it's human nature. The brain is wired to protect itself from embarrassment and rejection. When a person senses that their ideas won't be valued, they stop sharing them. And when that happens, the entire team loses out on potential breakthroughs. Creating a safe environment starts before the brainstorming even begins. It's in the way leaders set the tone, in the way they react to suggestions, and in the way they make it clear, explicitly and through their actions, that this is a place where every idea is welcome. One of the most powerful ways to do this is by eliminating the fear of failure. People need to know that brainstorming isn't about being right. It's about exploring possibilities. It's about generating as many ideas as possible without worrying whether they are perfect. The best ideas often start as bad ideas. When Steve Jobs and his team were developing the iPhone, the first concepts looked nothing like the sleek device we know today. It took countless iterations, discarded ideas, and radical changes to arrive at the final product. If someone had shut down an early idea simply because it wasn't perfect, the iPhone might never have existed. The same principle applies to any brainstorming session. If people feel like they need to present fully formed, polished ideas, they will hesitate. But if they know that rough, unfinished thoughts are just as valuable because they might spark something bigger, they will share more freely. One of the best ways to encourage this openness is by celebrating imperfection. A leader or facilitator can say something as simple as, "There are no bad ideas in this room," but those words have to be backed by action. Instead, leaders can ask, "What inspired that thought?" or "How could we build on that?" These small shifts in language create an atmosphere where ideas aren't shut down, but explored. It's also important to be mindful of how brainstorming sessions are structured. In many meetings, the loudest voices dominate. The more extroverted team members jump in quickly while others stay silent. But silence doesn't mean lack of ideas. It often means hesitation. To create an environment where everyone feels safe to contribute, leaders can use techniques that encourage equal participation. One simple method is writing ideas down before discussing them. When people have time to think and jot down their thoughts privately, they are more likely to share them later. Another method is going around the room and giving everyone a turn to speak, ensuring that no single voice takes over the conversation. Nonverbal communication also plays a huge role in making people feel safe. A raised eyebrow, a dismissive shrug, or an impatient glance at a phone can send a clear message: "This idea isn't worth my time." On the other hand, nodding, maintaining eye contact, and responding with curiosity signal that every idea matters. These small, often unnoticed cues shape whether people feel encouraged to contribute or if they start withdrawing from the conversation. A safe environment doesn't just benefit the brainstorming session, it creates a culture where innovation thrives beyond the meeting room. When people know they won't be judged for thinking differently, they start bringing more ideas to the table, even outside of formal discussions. They take more creative risks, suggest improvements, and contribute more actively to the team's growth. Over time, this mindset shift leads to breakthroughs that wouldn't have been possible in an environment where fear and hesitation existed. The most successful teams aren't the ones with the smartest individuals. They are the ones where every individual feels valued, heard, and safe to contribute. The best ideas don't come from a single genius. They emerge from teams that trust each other enough to share, challenge, and build together. In any brainstorming session, the ability to generate great ideas isn't just about creativity, it's about the way we listen. Too often, brainstorming becomes a competition of who can speak the loudest or share the most ideas the fastest. But real breakthroughs don't happen when people are just waiting for their turn to talk. They happen when people are truly listening, absorbing, and building on each other's ideas. The difference between hearing and listening is subtle but powerful. Hearing is passive, it's simply the act of perceiving sound. Listening, on the other hand, is active. It requires full engagement, curiosity, and a genuine interest in what others have to say, When people feel truly heard, they become more willing to share openly. But when they sense that their words are being ignored or dismissed, they shut down, and the flow of ideas slows to a crawl. Most of the time, we don't realize how little we actually listen. In conversations, people are often thinking about what they will say next rather than focusing on the speaker. In brainstorming, this tendency becomes even more pronounced. The excitement of coming up with ideas can make people eager to jump in before someone has even finished speaking, but when that happens, ideas get lost. The best brainstorming sessions happen when people slow down, listen completely, and give space for ideas to develop. One way to practice active listening is to pause before responding. Instead of immediately adding your own thoughts, take a moment to reflect on what was just said. This brief pause not only signals that you are truly processing the information, but it also gives others the chance to expand on their idea. It transforms brainstorming from a rapid-fire exchange into a deeper, more meaningful conversation where ideas can evolve. Another powerful technique is to repeat or reframe what someone else has said before adding your own thoughts. If a teammate suggests an idea, instead of moving on immediately, you might say, "What I hear you saying is," or "So, you're suggesting that this does two things. First, it confirms to the speaker that their idea has been understood and valued, and second, it helps clarify the idea for the rest of the group. Sometimes, the simple act of rephrasing an idea makes it clearer and sparks new connections. Listening also means resisting the urge to judge or dismiss ideas too quickly. In a brainstorming session, it's easy to label an idea as impractical or unrealistic right away. But the most innovative solutions often come from ideas that seemed strange at first. If everyone is focused on filtering out the bad ideas instead of truly considering each suggestion, they might miss out on something groundbreaking. Instead of responding with, "That won't work," a better approach is to ask, "How could we make that work?" or "What would need to change for this to be possible?" Questions keep the conversation going while judgment shuts it down. The best brainstorming teams also understand that listening isn't just about words. It's about body language, tone, and emotions. When someone shares an idea, they are putting themselves out there. A simple nod, a smile, or a look of curiosity can make them feel encouraged to continue. But if others are checking their phones, crossing their arms, or looking uninterested, the speaker may hesitate to contribute again. A culture of listening is created through small, consistent actions that show people their thoughts are valued. Another key aspect of listening is recognizing the contributions of quieter team members. Not everyone is comfortable speaking up in a group setting, especially if they feel overshadowed by more dominant voices. A good facilitator will notice who hasn't spoken and invite them into the conversation in a way that feels natural and non-intimidating. Sometimes this means directly asking for their thoughts. Other times, it means providing opportunities for people to write down ideas before discussing them aloud. When people see that their input is being actively sought, they become more willing to participate. Listening also plays a crucial role in building on ideas rather than competing against them. Too often, brainstorming turns into a series of individual contributions rather than a collective effort. One person shares an idea, then another person shares a different one, and so on, without real connection between them. But the most successful sessions happen when people take an existing idea and expand on it. This requires listening with the intent to add value rather than simply waiting for a chance to speak. A simple way to encourage this is by using phrases like "yes and" instead of "no but." When people build on each other's ideas rather than replacing them, creativity flourishes. Beyond the brainstorming session itself, a culture of listening strengthens relationships within a team. When people feel heard, they feel respected. When they feel respected, they trust each other more. And when there is trust, people become more willing to take risks, challenge assumptions, and think boldly. In environments where listening is prioritized, innovation becomes a natural outcome rather than a forced effort. Ultimately, great brainstorming isn't just about coming up with ideas. It's about creating an environment where ideas can grow, and that starts with the way we listen. When a group of people gathers to brainstorm, there's often an assumption that the best ideas will come from those who think alike. It's natural to believe that if everyone shares the same mindset, they will align quickly and come to a solution faster. But in reality, the most innovative ideas don't emerge from similarity, they come from diversity. Not just diversity in background, but diversity in thinking styles, perspectives, and experiences. A room full of like-minded people will often arrive at predictable solutions. They will approach problems the same way they always have, reinforcing familiar ideas instead of breaking new ground. But when people with different ways of thinking come together, they challenge assumptions, introduce fresh viewpoints, and spark creative solutions that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. The best teams understand that diversity isn't about filling a room with different people. It's about creating an environment where different perspectives are valued, encouraged, and explored. Some people are visionaries. They dream big, think about the future, and come up with ideas that seem impossible at first. Others are analytical, breaking ideas down into their logical components, identifying risks, and ensuring feasibility. Then there are those who focus on execution, thinking practically about how to turn ideas into reality. In a brainstorming session, each of these perspectives is essential. Without visionaries, a team might never dream big enough to disrupt an industry. Without analytical thinkers, they might pursue ideas that lack a solid foundation. And without executors, even the best ideas will remain just ideas. Tension often arises when these different thinking styles clash. A visionary might propose something bold, only to be met with skepticism from a more analytical thinker. The analyst may view themselves as being realistic, while the visionary sees them as limiting creativity. But this tension isn't a problem, it's a strength. It means that every idea is being tested, refined, and improved through multiple lenses. The key is not to eliminate these differences, but to embrace them. When team members learn to see these different styles as complementary rather than conflicting, they unlock a level of collaboration that leads to truly groundbreaking ideas. The best brainstorming sessions also include people with diverse experiences. Someone who has worked in multiple industries might bring a solution from one field into another in a way that no one else would have considered. A person who has spent years working directly with customers might understand pain points that others overlook. Someone from a different cultural background may introduce a perspective that challenges long-held assumptions. The wider the range of experiences in the room, the more unique the ideas will be. One of the biggest challenges in diverse brainstorming sessions is ensuring that every voice is heard. Naturally, some people will dominate the conversation while others may hesitate to speak up, especially if they feel their perspective is different from the majority. The role of a good leader or facilitator is to create space for everyone to contribute. This might mean inviting quieter team members to share their thoughts or setting ground rules that prevent a single voice from taking over. It also means recognizing the value in every contribution, even if an idea initially seems unconventional or unrelated. A great way to encourage diverse thinking is to actively seek out different perspectives. This can be done by playing devil's advocate, asking, "What's the opposite way of looking at this problem?" Or, "How would someone from a completely different industry approach this?" When people are encouraged to step outside their usual way of thinking, they often discover insights they wouldn't have considered otherwise. Another powerful technique is cross-disciplinary collaboration. Some of the biggest innovations in history have come from combining ideas from unrelated fields. The invention of the printing press, for example, came from merging the idea of a wine press with movable type. In brainstorming, this might mean bringing in people from different departments, industries, or backgrounds to share their insights. A finance expert might offer a marketing solution no one expected. A designer might solve an engineering challenge in a way that hadn't been considered. The key is not just to bring these perspectives together, but to create an environment where they can freely interact and build on each other. Diverse teams also bring different ways of processing information. Some people think best through spoken discussion, while others prefer to process their thoughts in writing before sharing them. A brainstorming session that only accommodates one style will miss out on the full range of ideas. Allowing different modes of contribution, whether it's verbal discussion, written ideas, or visual representations, ensures that every type of thinker can participate fully. One of the greatest barriers to embracing diverse thinking is the natural tendency to seek comfort in familiarity. It's easy to gravitate toward people who think like us and validate our ideas. But real growth happens in discomfort. When people are exposed to different viewpoints, it forces them to reconsider their assumptions and approach problems in new ways. The best teams don't just tolerate different perspectives, they actively seek them out. They understand that disagreement isn't a threat, it's a catalyst for innovation. At its core, diversity in thinking isn't just about producing better ideas in the moment, it's about building a culture of continuous innovation. When people feel safe to bring their unique perspectives, they don't just contribute more in brainstorming sessions, they contribute more in every aspect of their work. They become more engaged, more invested, and more willing to challenge the status quo. And when that happens, creativity and progress become a natural part of the team's DNA. In any brainstorming session, the way ideas are handled determines whether creativity flourishes or fades. The biggest threat to innovation isn't a lack of good ideas, it's the tendency to shut them down too quickly. The moment an idea is judged too soon, the creative process is interrupted and the potential for something truly remarkable is lost. The challenge isn't just generating ideas, it's keeping them alive long enough to explore their full potential. The natural instinct in many discussions is to evaluate ideas immediately. People want to determine if something is realistic, practical, or worth pursuing before it's fully developed. While evaluation is important, timing is everything. Brainstorming isn't the stage for filtering, it's the stage for expanding. If people feel that their ideas will be met with skepticism or immediate rejection, they will hesitate to share. And when hesitation sets in, creativity slows down. When someone says, "that won't work," or "we've tried that before," it doesn't just shut down one idea, it sends a signal to the entire group that only certain kinds of ideas are welcome. Over time, people start self-censoring, eliminating their own thoughts before they even speak. They begin to only share safe ideas, ideas they believe will be accepted without resistance. But the most innovative solutions rarely come from safe thinking. They come from ideas that initially seem unusual, risky, or even impossible. A simple shift in language can make a significant difference. Instead of responding with "that won't work," try asking, "how could that work?" Instead of saying, "we've done that before," try asking, "what could we do differently this time?" Questions keep conversations open, they encourage exploration. When people feel that their ideas are being considered rather than dismissed, they become more willing to take creative risks. The best brainstorming sessions create an environment where no idea is immediately judged. One effective technique is the yes and approach. Instead of saying no or but, which can feel dismissive, respond with yes and. This simple shift encourages building on ideas rather than shutting them down. It allows for expansion rather than contraction. Even if an idea isn't fully formed or seems flawed, adding to it can lead to something valuable. Some of the most successful products, businesses, and innovations started as ideas that evolved through collective input, rather than being perfect from the start. Another approach is to delay judgment intentionally. Instead of immediately discussing whether an idea is good or bad, list every idea without filtering. Capture everything. Once the ideas are on the table, then go back and explore them. This separation of idea generation and evaluation prevents premature criticism and allows for more creative thinking. It's also important to recognize that what seems like a bad idea at first might actually be the key to something great. Many game-changing innovations were initially dismissed. When the concept of ride-sharing was introduced, many people thought it would never work. Who would get into a stranger's car? When online shopping first started, skeptics doubted that people would ever trust buying things without seeing them in person. Yet today, companies like Uber and Amazon have reshaped industries. These ideas weren't perfect when they were first proposed, but because they weren't shut down too early, they had the chance to evolve. In a brainstorming session, every idea should be treated as a starting point, not a finished product. Instead of focusing on why something won't work, shift the focus to how it could work. Innovation happens when people are willing to ask, what would need to change to make this possible, rather than dismissing an idea outright. Encouraging curiosity over judgment requires a shift in mindset. Instead of looking for reasons to reject an idea, look for possibilities within it. Even if an idea isn't practical in its original form, there may be something valuable in the concept. Sometimes one idea sparks another, leading to an entirely different and better solution. The key is to let ideas breathe before deciding their fate. Creating this kind of open environment doesn't mean that every idea will ultimately be used. Not all ideas are good ones. But the point of brainstorming isn't to immediately determine what's good or bad. It's to generate as many ideas as possible so that the best ones can emerge. When people feel free to contribute without fear of rejection, they offer more ideas, and within that abundance, truly great solutions can be found. Another benefit of avoiding immediate judgment is that it fosters a culture of experimentation. When people know that their ideas won't be shut down right away, they become more willing to take creative risks beyond just brainstorming sessions. They experiment more, propose new approaches, and push boundaries in their everyday work. The impact of this mindset extends beyond one meeting. It shapes the way teams innovate continuously. The best leaders and facilitators understand that brainstorming isn't just about the ideas themselves, it's about the conditions that allow those ideas to thrive. By creating an environment where judgment is postponed and exploration is encouraged, they unlock the full creative potential of their teams. The difference between a mediocre session and a groundbreaking one often comes down to this simple principle. Instead of asking whether an idea is right or wrong, ask where it could lead. The best ideas don't come from a single individual working alone. They emerge from the collective creativity of a team. When people collaborate, they don't just add their ideas together, they refine, improve, and expand on each other's thoughts, turning small sparks into powerful innovations. Brainstorming isn't about individual brilliance, it's about what happens when different minds come together and build something greater than any one person could on their own. In many meetings, people approach brainstorming as a competition, each person trying to prove that their idea is the best, fighting for attention and validation. But brainstorming isn't about winning, it's about discovering. The best teams understand that great ideas don't have to come fully formed from one person's mind. Instead, they emerge from the process of sharing, questioning, and refining. When people stop competing and start collaborating, creativity flourishes. Collaboration works best when there's an openness to building on others' ideas rather than dismissing them too quickly. It's easy to listen to an idea and immediately think of why it won't work, but that mindset limits creativity. Instead, successful teams focus on possibilities. Rather than shutting down an idea, they ask, how can we improve this? Or what could we add to make it stronger? These simple shifts in approach can turn a rough concept into a breakthrough innovation. One of the most effective ways to encourage collaboration is to create an environment where ideas are treated as collective property rather than individual contributions. In some teams, people become overly attached to their own ideas, making it difficult for others to build on them. But in the best brainstorming sessions, ideas don't belong to any one person, they belong to the group. When someone suggests something, the next person doesn't just critique it or move on. They take that idea and add something new, turning it into something even better. This is why some of the most innovative companies prioritize team-based idea generation rather than relying on a few key individuals. When multiple perspectives contribute to a single concept, the result is often far more powerful than what any one person could have created alone. It's the difference between a solo artist painting a picture and a group of people creating a mural together. Each person's contribution adds depth, detail, and meaning that wouldn't exist otherwise. Successful collaboration also requires a culture of trust. People need to feel comfortable sharing their thoughts without fear of being dismissed or judged. When trust is present, people take more risks, suggest bolder ideas, and are more willing to challenge assumptions. Without trust, people hold back, worried about how their ideas will be perceived. A team that trusts each other creates an environment where creativity isn't just allowed. Listening plays a critical role in this process. In many brainstorming sessions, people are so focused on preparing their next thought that they don't fully absorb what others are saying. But the best ideas don't come from individuals speaking in isolation. They come from true collaboration where people deeply engage with each other's ideas and look for ways to expand on them. Active listening isn't just about hearing words. It's about understanding the intent behind them and finding connections that may not be obvious at first. Some of the best collaborative breakthroughs happen when people ask, what if? This simple question shifts the conversation from evaluating ideas to exploring possibilities. Instead of responding to an idea with skepticism, teams can experiment with different ways to make it work. What if we approach this differently? What if we combine these two ideas? What if we remove this limitation? When people engage in this kind of thinking together, they push each other beyond their initial assumptions and unlock ideas that wouldn't have emerged otherwise. Collaboration also thrives when there is a mix of thinking styles in the room. Some people generate bold, high-level concepts, while others excel at refining details and ensuring feasibility. Some see the big picture, while others focus on execution. The magic happens when these different styles interact. Instead of seeing differences as obstacles, the best teams recognize them as strengths. When visionaries, analysts, and executors collaborate, they create ideas that are both ambitious and achievable. Another key to successful brainstorming is removing ego from the equation. When people are too focused on being right or getting credit for their ideas, it becomes harder to collaborate effectively. But when the goal is to find the best solution, regardless of who suggested it, teams become more open to feedback, more willing to adapt, and more focused on collective success. The strongest teams celebrate ideas as shared victories rather than individual achievements. One way to foster this mindset is to encourage the mindset that no single idea is ever finished in its first form. Even the best initial concepts benefit from refinement. When people expect that their ideas will be shaped and improved by the group, they become more open to feedback. Instead of defending their original thoughts, they embrace the opportunity to see their ideas evolve into something even better. Great brainstorming sessions aren't just about coming up with ideas, they're about shaping and strengthening them through collaboration. The best teams don't just accept each other's ideas, they build on them, challenge them, and refine them until they reach their full potential. It's through this process of collective creativity that the most groundbreaking innovations are born. A brainstorming session isn't just an exchange of ideas. It's a powerful process that shapes the way a team thinks, collaborates, and innovates. The way people engage in these discussions determines whether creativity thrives or fades. It's not about simply filling a room with smart people. It's about creating the right environment for those people to think boldly, challenge assumptions, and work together in a way that leads to something greater than what any one person could achieve alone. A team that brainstorms effectively understands that great ideas rarely come fully formed. The best concepts often start as rough thoughts, incomplete and imperfect, but with the right discussion and refinement, they evolve into solutions that drive meaningful change. The challenge isn't just coming up with ideas. It's about nurturing them, building on them, and allowing them the space to grow. The difference between an average brainstorming session and a truly productive one lies in the mindset of the team. When people approach brainstorming with curiosity rather than judgment, when they listen as much as they speak, and when they collaborate instead of compete, the creative process reaches a whole new level. One of the most important aspects of brainstorming is recognizing that innovation isn't a solo act. The greatest breakthroughs in history didn't come from individuals working in isolation. They came from groups of people who challenged each other, supported each other, and built on each other's ideas. A single person may spark an idea, but it's the collective effort that turns it into something extraordinary. This is why brainstorming should never feel like a competition where people fight to have their ideas heard. It should feel like a shared effort where every contribution moves the team forward. The best teams understand that every idea has value, even if it's not immediately practical or usable. Sometimes the boldest, most unconventional thoughts are the ones that lead to the biggest breakthroughs. But these ideas can only emerge in an environment where people feel safe to share openly, without fear of judgment or immediate rejection. The moment people start censoring themselves, the creative flow is disrupted. This is why building a culture of trust, where every voice is respected, is essential to unlocking the full potential of a team's creativity. Listening is just as important as speaking in a brainstorming session. When people truly listen, they don't just wait for their turn to talk. They engage with what others are saying, seek to understand, and look for ways to build on each idea. A conversation where people are actively listening leads to the kind of collaboration that sparks new connections and insights. The best brainstorming doesn't happen when people are just sharing ideas independently. It happens when they're weaving their thoughts together, combining different perspectives, and strengthening each idea through discussion. The most productive brainstorming teams also know that disagreement isn't something to avoid, it's something to embrace. When different viewpoints collide, it creates the kind of friction that leads to innovation. But the key is to approach disagreement with the right mindset. Instead of shutting down an idea with criticism, the goal should be to explore it, test it, and refine it. Instead of arguing to prove a point, teams should be questioning, challenging, and improving ideas together. It's in this process of constructive debate that the strongest ideas take shape. Another crucial factor in effective brainstorming is keeping the focus on progress rather than perfection. No idea is perfect in its first form, and expecting perfection too soon can stop creativity in its tracks. Instead of searching for the right answer immediately, the best brainstorming sessions focus on generating possibilities and allowing ideas to evolve over time. Many of the greatest innovations in the world didn't start as flawless concepts. They started as rough ideas that were tested, refined, and improved through collaboration. Brainstorming also requires a willingness to experiment. Some ideas will work, and some won't, but even the ones that don't work often lead to new insights and discoveries. The most creative teams don't see failure as something to fear, they see it as a natural part of the process. They know that every attempt, even the ones that don't succeed, moves them closer to finding the right solution. This mindset of experimentation allows teams to push boundaries, take risks, and explore ideas that might otherwise be dismissed too quickly. One of the most rewarding aspects of a strong brainstorming culture is the sense of shared ownership that comes with it. When a team works together to develop an idea, the final outcome doesn't belong to any one person, it belongs to the group. And because of that, people are more invested, more motivated, and more committed to bringing those ideas to life. Brainstorming isn't just about coming up with ideas in a meeting, it's about creating a culture where people feel empowered to think creatively every day. The ability to brainstorm effectively isn't just a skill, it's a mindset. It's a way of thinking that values openness, collaboration, and the belief that the best ideas are yet to come. The most successful teams aren't the ones with the most individual talent. They're the ones that know how to harness the collective creativity of their people. They create an environment where every idea is given a chance, where every voice matters, and where innovation isn't just an occasional outcome, it's a way of working. When people embrace this mindset, brainstorming stops feeling like an obligation and starts feeling like an opportunity. It becomes a space where creativity isn't forced but flows naturally. It becomes a process where ideas aren't just exchanged but transformed. And it becomes one of the most powerful tools for solving problems, driving innovation, and creating something truly remarkable.